This is my new honey ginger Swiss roll recipe. First off, I'm going to start by lining my pan. As you already know, I use USA pans. They've got a brilliant silicone coating on them, so I won't have to worry about greasing the sides, but I'm going to line it, leaving a little bit on each side, making it easier to remove later, so it's sort of like handles. While I've got the baking paper out, I'm going to line this flat tray and sprinkle some sugar over the surface. This is for when the sponge is baked off. What you do is you turn out the sponge onto this paper and the sugar helps it prevent it from sticking. Then I'll just set this aside for later. Now we get on with the making. I've set my oven to 170 degrees fan and I'm adding 120 grams of plain flour to my Thermomix bowl. Then I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of baking powder, a quarter of a teaspoon of mixed spice and a half a teaspoon of ginger powder. I'm popping the lid on then and I'm sticking the MC in so I don't get covered with the mix, and I'm mixing this for 3 seconds on speed 5. After I've done that, I'm going to remove this from the bowl and set it aside to add back to the egg mix later. Okay, so with the flour mix set aside, the next thing to do is to weigh the honey into the TM bowl. I'm going to set the honey to 5 minutes on varoma temperature on speed 2. This is going to reduce the liquid in the honey because honey has a little bit of water in it, and it will slightly deepen the colour. Once the timer's up, I'm going to add the butterfly and the bicarb to the mix. Okay, you can see it's bubbling inside. Okay, so the butterfly goes in. Next, the bicarb goes in. Don't hit the blades, get it off the blades if you can. And give that a mix. This will foam up a little bit, not quite like honeycomb, but similar sort of effect. Now I've still got the butterfly in and I'm mixing this for 2 minutes on speed 2.5. I'm doing this because I want it to cool down a little bit before I add the eggs. So the next step is to add the sugar and the eggs. So I'm adding the sugar in first, and that will help cool the mix down again, and then I'm going to add my 4 eggs in on top of that. Right, so with the sugar and eggs in now, we can set the TM for 8 minutes at 70 degrees, speed 3.5. Leave the MC out because you want to incorporate as much air into the machine as you can. When you first have it turned on at 3.5, it can wobble a little bit, so do it to 3.3 and then turn it to 3.5 as soon as you can, and then just leave it for the 8 minutes. Now after 8 minutes, I'm checking to see if we're at ribbon stage, and I'd like it to be a little bit more foamy, so I'm putting the lid back on and I'm going to give it 2 more minutes at 3.5, but this time I'm not putting any heat at all. I'm just whipping it, and you'll see when I open the lid this time it will be a lot foamier. So to check to see if it's at ribbon stage, what you do is you see if you can make a figure 8 with the drizzle over the top, and I can, so I'm happy with that. Now I'm popping the lid back on and I'm setting my machine to reverse speed +1. You can do 1.5, and then rein in the flour mix that we had held aside earlier through the hole in the lid. Once the flour is all mixed in, remove the lid and then make sure that there's no lumps of flour left. So scrape down and make sure that there's no flour sitting on top of those blades, because this quantity is just at the right height for you to have those blades. If you can probably see a little bit of flour there, so make sure that that's all mixed through, otherwise you'll have uncooked flour in your sponge. So lid back on, and I'm just going to give it a few seconds this time, just to make sure that it's all mixed in well. Alright, so now we grab our prepared baking tray, and I'm using a spatula, as an offset or step spatula or palette knife, whatever you call it, to do this. So just remove all the sponge from the bowl. You can do that trick where once you get to a certain point and you can't get any more out, pop it back onto your Thermomix and give it a little blitz at speed 3.54, and then get the remainder out. I'll fast forward and do that here. Waste not, want not. Okay, so now we've got the rest of the mix around the outside of the bowl, getting that out. Now you don't want to play around too much with this mix because there is a lot of air in it, and believe me, if you were to slowly stir this and beat the air out, it would be flat. But as you can see, it's quite foamy. It's a really good texture. So cooking the eggs at 70 degrees in the Thermomix seems to work quite well. I've seen lots of recipes where they don't cook them at all, or they're at a lower temperature, but I find that it just doesn't work as well. Now I'm tapping it on the bench here, and you can see there's all these bubbles coming to the surface and they're bursting. Now we want to get rid of those big bubbles. And here we go, straight out of the oven. And I'm using the back of a knife just to ease away the edge of the sponge from the tin. It's not really stuck, but it does stick a little bit because of the egg mixture and the sugar. It's really got no fat, so that's why it does that. Now I'm just teasing away the little clips that I use to keep my paper down, and I'll grab that tray that we prepared earlier with the sugar, and we'll flip this out on top of it. So flip it out on top of that. Now I'm going to cover this now with a damp tea towel. So a clean damp tea towel, and I'm just leaving that there. And it's really hot, like I've just taken it out of the oven. Now 5 minutes later, it's still warm, but it's cooled down a little bit. Now I take the backing paper off, and using a sharp serrated knife, I cut just a little bit into the surface of my sponge so that it's easier to roll up. Then we roll this section out and we leave it there to cool completely. Now we do this because it remembers the shape later, so it's much easier to roll your sponge later when you've rolled it up ready to go. Now I've made the filling, and this is just a simple filling but very tasty, and I'm going to unroll my honey Swiss roll and pop it in the center. Now I've made up a batch here that's just the right amount to put in the center. Now my Swiss roll tin is a little bit shallower than I'd like it to be. I'd like it to be a little bit longer, but still it works nice. But if you have a tin that's a little bit more square than the rectangle, it will show the swirl a little bit better than what mine has. But like I said, I'm still happy with this one. So spread this out with your step palette knife. Step palette knives work better because your hand doesn't get in the way. So if you don't own a palette knife, grab yourself a step one, and I think you'll really like that a lot better than a flat one. Okay, so we spread that out as best we can, and then we're going to roll it up. So as you can see, it wants to roll back up into the shape that it was before. Now I may not have put quite enough sugar on my tray. You can see that one edge there is has stuck a little bit, but yep, it still looks good. And there we have it, a rolled Swiss roll. Ta-da! Really pleased I could do all that in one stage, like in the Thermomix, rather than doing it on the stove top. So now we cut the ends off. That's the chef's bit, or the employee's bit. And and then we serve it. Chill it before you serve it and it'll be much nicer. Now this is quite a soft, sticky Swiss roll. Beautiful.